Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. My co-host Aries couldn't be here, so today we are joined by Devin. So it's going to be the same format as last time. We're going to go through some news articles within the tech industry, read them, and discuss them a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, so our first one that I have is actually a story from the UK. Google has been ordered to remove links due to a right-to-be-forgotten law that exists in many places in Europe. So, basically it says Google has been ordered by the Information Commissioner's Office to remove 9 links to current news stories about older reports which themselves were removed from search results under the right-to-be-forgotten ruling. The search engine had previously removed links related to a 10-year-old criminal offense by an individual after requests were made under the right-to-be-forgotten ruling. Removal of those links from Google's search results for the defendant's name spurred new posts detailing the removals, which were indexed by Google's search engine. Google refused to remove the links to these later news posts, which included details of the original criminal offense, despite them forming part of the search results for the defendant's name, arguing that they were an essential part of a news story and in the public's interest. Google now has 35 days from August 18th to remove the links and search results from the defendant's name. Google has the right to appeal the General Regulatory Chamber against the notice. So basically, it's something that law that they instated to protect criminals, that if they were found innocent, that they have the right to have everything related to their trial scrubbed from the internet. And I don't know. Personally, I don't think that's a really good idea there. Simply because of the fact at that point you're dictating what the media can and cannot publish. I mean, I get that it's
yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, but I mean, to an extent, the media in the United Kingdom doesn't really have the same rights as the media in the United States. And while the U.S. version of Google can obviously operate freely and do whatever it wants, the UK division of Google doesn't really have that right.
Thing is, when Google removes it, from further reading I did on this, when Google removes it, it'll remove it from the search results for everybody, not just the UK. So this is this is an international thing, and you're talking about one country being able to declare we don't want that on your website, and it affecting the rest of the world at that point.
Well, see, if it's an international thing, then it's kind of different, because, yeah, it's like you're saying, the rest of the countries obviously aren't going to be, people in other countries aren't going to be able to read that article or any of the other articles either if it's removed from all of Google. And really, if Google would have to remove it from all the websites internationally, then it shouldn't even be really a United Kingdom decision. It should be, or a Britain decision. It should be more of a United Nations decision or something. I mean, yeah, it's not like the biggest thing the United Nations would ever have to deal with, but I mean, it still would technically, I would think, fall under their jurisdiction.
Yeah, like I said, it would be, or some sort of established rules of the internet that have been there since its inception. Okay, so China, for instance, can filter out, Google search results. That's, I would say, that's fine. That's the Chinese government's decision. I obviously don't endorse that. But, yeah, like I said, this is, Britain, if they, they have, most countries have control over domain names within that country. They could filter out search results if they really wanted to. But they're forcing Google to being okay, in the interest of protecting privacy, we want to force you to remove it so no one has access to it. I mean, I honestly don't get that. I mean, it's obviously not in the best interest of media to be doing either one of those. But trying to force an international company to obey the laws of a single country never works out well.
No, it's not. And it's not going to fly in the end. It's basically just Britain trying to assert power that it doesn't really have.
No.
And it's happened, obviously, with other countries in the past, and it doesn't really get anywhere. So I'm not really too concerned about this.
No, I'm not really too concerned about it either. Okay, moving on to our next subject. Okay, so this next subject we talked about a little bit in our previous podcast. Like, not the previous Tech Talks podcast, just the previous Gaming and Progress podcast. But we didn't really talk about it in depth. This is from GoSUGamers.net. It says, certain Swedish high schools will add 3 hours of esports classes a week. 3 high schools in Sweden will be offering esports classes in the coming semester. Pupils will be able to practice and learn games such as Dota and Counter-Strike, to name a few. Certain schools in Sweden will now be supporting esports for the upcoming semester. 3 high schools, one in Karlstad, one in Alanacker. Sorry guys, I'm not Swedish, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. And the other one in Stockholm will be featuring esports as a subject in their classes. Neither school will be providing full-blown esports programs, but outside of the mandatory subjects such as math and language, there will be subjects such as esports. Dota and Counter-Strike offered in certain alignments. Esports subjects will be treated like regular athletics-oriented ones, where students access rooms and areas designated for practice and similar. There will be school teams within the different games aiming to compete at tournaments such as DreamHack. Known players and personalities will be invited to give guest lectures at the School of Voxendalen, located in Alvenacker. The students studying events will also get to host a large tournament at their end of project for the 3rd year. A few hours a week would be committed to esports in their schedule. The school system must get better in general in educating people about contemporary society, and this is good evidence of that very fact. It says there's some Swedish student in a press message. I'm not even going to begin to try to pronounce that dude's name. He's the chairman of the Education and Employment Board in Sigtuna County, located in Stockholm. Magnus Alhed, the principal of the school in Karlstad, tells Swedish media Aftonbladet how there have been some frowning noses and some wondering why they get to play computer games during school hours, but we aim to kill the myth that this is a bad thing. Furthermore, it's about showing respect to this group of pupils. Esports is growing worldwide and has always been a thing gaining lots of attention in Sweden, with mainstream success of DreamHack, which has been gathering the youth of the region every 6 months for the past few years now. Furthermore, a national broadcasting company, SVT, has showed interest in the past in the major media players such as Aftonbladet and the biggest evening paper in the country, Tele, the largest internet provider, and TV6, one of the major TV companies, have also been stepping in lately to cover and support the growing industry. Would you like to see esports featured in your city or school? Will it provide positive marketing experience for esports?
You will not study physics. You will study physics engines. You will not study art. You will study the art of war. You will learn about biology by bathing in the blood of your enemies. Sound good? Well, welcome to VGHS.
This is actually happening.
So
that's basically what that article has to say about it. And I'm, like I said in the podcast, and we did only really briefly touch on it, I'm really not surprised that we're seeing schools actually add esports sections. At least in Sweden. Sweden's always been pretty cool about stuff like that. And esports has gained a lot of not just attention but popularity. You look at all the esports titles we have now: Halo, Call of Duty, even the new one, Rocket League, has gained a lot of support and attention. I mean, people are playing Rocket League like it's it's like everything.
And before
and,
that,
like,
you had League of Legends and StarCraft. Those were like the two big games that started esports as it is today. And it just ballooned into complete popularity.
You have all these different types of games that are esports games. Everything from first-person shooters and racing games to MOBAs and all kinds of stuff. So it's no wonder that esports has become so popular in recent years. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these esports tournaments offer you a lot of money if you win, and even if you don't necessarily win, you can still make a good amount of money and a name for yourself. Going back to PopCon, the Halo Championship, what was that for, like 50 grand or something?
That was the League of Legends Championship. The Halo Championship was for $5 grand for the winning team. It was 5 or 10.
Even
10
even $5 grand is a good chunk of money that you can get, like, yourself a nice gaming rig and stuff like that, and step up your game even further. So I'm really not surprised at Sweden doing this, and I wouldn't be surprised even more if other schools did it in the future in other countries.
Yeah. So, I don't know. My thoughts on this is, they're offering 3 hours of class time. That's fine, but, depending on what game they're playing, I mean, obviously some games are going to be easier to learn than others to be able to compete on a competitive level. But, a lot of esports players will tell you, if you're going to become an esports champion, if you're going to become good at playing an esports-based game, you have to sink many hours, and just 3 hours a week, wouldn't be able to cut it. So I feel like if the school was serious about doing something like that, they'd have to also offer things like after schools, like an extracurricular activity to bolster this. Teaching the fundamentals of the game for maybe the first few weeks, in those hour class periods, and then the rest of the school year in that class is basically spent practicing and honing your skills, and then after school is spent competing with other students. I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. But,
it's definitely a good start.
Yeah. Especially with how big esports is getting. I mean, what was it? The last League of Legends championship garnered 40,000 40,000 or 40 million viewers or something. Yeah, it was 40 million. It wasn't 40,000. I don't know why I said 40,000. But yeah, it was 40 million viewers, and there was a couple $1 million on the stake for prize money. And if you compare that to actual legitimate sports like baseball, basketball, soccer, those type of sports, those championships don't get nearly the amount of viewers that esports championships get, and it's just really insane. I mean, I honestly don't think we're that far off from esports becoming a number one competitive sport that's actually watched in the mainstream. Give it
I mean, it already has become mainstream to an extent. It's just there are certain interest groups out there, obviously, who don't want it to become entirely mainstream. Namely, the supporters and backers of places are like the NFL and the NHL and NBA and stuff like that. It would directly compete with traditional sports. So obviously, places that both websites and television channels that support places like that obviously aren't going to be as inclined to support the more esports style.
The thing is, like I said, esports has already overtaken it with that 40 million viewer mark. And the fact is, I think it was Congress. It was either this year or late last year that they decided to change the laws on visas for competitive athletes, so that esports athletes could get visas to come to the United States and compete more often. So I give it another 5-6 years. Like I said, we're going to be at a point where esports is just going to be completely huge. I'm not going to exaggerate it and say it's going to be huge to the level as it was in video game Highschool or something, but it's going to be it is going to be there fairly quickly if it keeps growing the way it is.
Okay, well, I think we can move on from that.
Okay. The next few things I have aren't really anything to discuss about. They're just, news stories I want to read. So, those of you who've watched the last Tech Talks knew that me and Aries were talking about how Intel released their new Skylake processors after a very short time of their 5th generation processors being released. Well, now they are suffering a huge shortage. And Intel says Intel's next generation 14 nanometer Skylake processor suffering from global shortage. A spokesperson at Asus Tech confirms. Intel has a lot riding on its new brand of Skylake processors. Much more than meets the eye. For one thing, Intel has been pointing out had been pointed out as part of a receding market, and one report even termed it as moving towards becoming a constituent of the legacy Silicon Valley. The flashy overhaul of the packaging, the removal of the stock HSF, and are all a part of the giant's attempts at cutting costs and attracting customers to shift to whatever they currently own. And it appears in an interesting twist, Intel Skylake processors have run into what appears to be a global shortage due to unknown reasons. So basically, they announced these processors. Everyone saw how powerful they were going to be and how cost effective they were going to be compared to the older 5th and 4th generation processors. Everyone lost their shit and ordered a fuck ton of them. And I mean, I guess that this should have been foreseen. I mean, if Intel was really banking on this being their last attempt to save the company, because they were really close to getting to the point where they couldn't make the processors any smaller without sacrificing speed and efficiency. That's why the last generation of processors actually took a jump in how big they were. And this has been an issue in Silicon Valley for a while. The tradition of increasing your processing power every 2 years on a smaller chip has slowly been harder and harder to keep up. I mean, the 4th generation lasted 3-4 years, and it's still like a good 4790K will still outperform a 5th generation processor. But that that doesn't really matter because most games aren't using all that processing power anyways. So they're just so for some reason their marketing team pulled off a miracle, and they're selling like hotcakes right now. Okay, on to Nvidia. So Nvidia's GeForce GTX 990M mobile GPU is to arrive in the 4th quarter, says Hexus.net. Nvidia are unhappy with the CEO of the Chinese computer manufacturer Hassi, according to a website, Notebook Check. He apparently is in hot water due to a conference presentation in which he revealed the existence and details of the Nvidia GTX 990M mobile GPU. This powerful new mobile GPU and laptops featuring it are expected to launch in 4th quarter of this year. Well, from what he revealed, it seems that it has a configurable power output ranging from 100 watts to 185 watts and beyond. This card is said to be as powerful as 2 GTX 980 mobile cards in SLI, so that alone is impressive. But what really gets me here is the configurable wattage, because that'll basically if it has configurable wattage, you're going to see these in everything from the super high-end laptops to your mid-range laptops to maybe even some of your lower-end laptops, because they've this card is doesn't cost much to produce more than a normal Nvidia card. Then what you're going to have is one card that can essentially do all. On your low-end laptop, you can have a card underclocked, and one on your high-end laptop you can have it at like a normal clock, and you can have two different performances on laptops using the same GPU. Normally it used to be is like, okay, if this laptop has this GPU, it's going to perform almost the same or exactly the same as this laptop with the same GPU. So that's a bit interesting. So
I don't know about any of that. I play console.
okay, yeah. And as it turns out, my hunch was right about the Nvidia GTX 950 launching for desktops. It is launched at a $159 US price. So it's a good entry-level graphics card. So for those of you who are building a PC on a budget and want something that's a little bit more updated than the 750 Ti, it's definitely something to look into. Okay, so this next article I have comes from ARS Technica. Want fiber internet?
Ars Technica.
Ars Technica? Okay, Ars Technica.
Yeah.
Comes from Ars Technica. Want fiber internet? That'll be $383,500, says an ISP says to a farm owner. Just let that sink in for a bit. Nearly $400,000 just to get fiber internet ran out to a farm. Now this, now Linus Tech Tips kind of talked about this in one of his videos earlier. But what really gets me is that this guy had, the company that he was going through had a fiber line a quarter-mile away from his house. And they couldn't run a fiber line off of that to his house, so it'd be a hell of a lot cheaper. They wanted to run a fiber cable 4 miles away to his house. And they told him that he couldn't use the fiber line a quarter-mile away because it was a private company line. Now, when they lay down these fiber cables, they just don't lay down just one single fiber. They lay down a whole bunch of them for just massive, massive bandwidth. And even if they did, that one single fiber, you can bounce multiple signals off of a single fiber and still have fast gigabit internet. So, but luckily, he was able to find another competing company that was able to run a fiber line out to him for $41,000. Yeah, but this is why I like Ars Technica. Although I didn't know how to pronounce their names or their name 5 minutes ago, they do a good job of just ripping ISPs a new one. But that is just ridiculous. I mean, and in most cases, fiber isn't going to be like even that much. It's just when you have to run new cable. It just goes to show the poor state of internet in rural America. I'm obviously a good example, as I'm running off of a satellite connection with a 20 gig data cap. Okay.
And your connection most of the time is shit.
Yeah, and my connection most of the time is shit. Okay, so this is something that I think we also briefly touched on in our Gaming in Progress vlog, but the PS4 firmware 3.0 beta leak has been confirmed. So, Devin, how about you go over the things that it's going to be adding to the PS4?
I would, if I still had the article. Hang on here a minute. One of the biggest things I can tell you right off the bat, though, that's going to be added is the ability to stream directly to YouTube. For those of you who don't know, YouTube for a little while has been running the new streaming directly to YouTube beta program thing, and it's very cool that we're already going to be able to have that ability to stream directly to YouTube on the PlayStation 4. It's definitely going to change the way streaming services work. YouTube is obviously already the biggest video service, and now that they're adding streaming, it's going to get bigger, and it might actually end up competing very heavily with Twitch. Damn it. so that's definitely going to be something that's very big. That's actually that's pretty much the biggest thing that's coming out of this update, is the fact that we're going to be able to stream directly to YouTube. Another thing that's going to be coming is they're going to be reworking the friends section, and there's actually going to be a community tab. So we're going to have the ability to have communities on the PlayStation 4, much like Xbox, much like the Xbox One already has, actually. Xbox has had the community features for a little while. So yeah, if I can find this damn article here. And actually, it has been confirmed because of the fact that they allowed you to sign up for the new beta, which is going to be coming out in September. All you have to do to sign up for the beta is you go onto the PlayStation website. There'll be a sign-up section for the beta, and then you just basically wait. I'm not really sure how they're going to distribute the beta. It'll probably be like an email with a code, and then you'll put the code in, and it'll allow you access to the new software update. So here are the other main points of this new update, and that's the events section, which has been added to the main menu. So this will allow you to discover and participate in new community events, which could be anything from like play this game on this day with a bunch of other people, or whatever. Community events has been pretty much a big thing in like every big community, so it's a good thing that we're finally getting this. And thanks for the link, Dakota, but I already found it.
Oh.
The community tab, like I said before, has been added to the friends list. So now we can go and create our own communities, find other communities. And I'm imagining there'll be communities kind of like how it is in Steam, to where it'll be set up for different games. So like on Steam, you'll have like your Star Wars Empire at War communities, your Star Wars Battlefront communities, Star Trek Online communities, and it'll be the same thing for the PlayStation. You'll have like your Call of Duty communities, your Lego Batman communities, your Grand Theft Auto communities, stuff like that. And that's going to be a really cool feature, and it'll be interesting to see like how a lot of these communities that have had to only exist on like forums and like Facebook groups will transition over into the new system communities. A new thing that has also been added to the Now Playing section is you'll be able to see a list of what the person is playing, and easily join in a game or form a party with that person. And another feature that's going to be added is another feature that's actually quite a bit like the one on Steam, which is where you can request to view a user's gameplay, kind of like a one-on-one stream session where you can see what they're doing, kind of like what you can do with Steam. So it'll set up like a private stream session for you to watch them. And Now Playing is actually going to be in the What's New section. And the message system has finally been improved, and this is actually a really good thing, because the message system for a while now has been kind of buggy. It would work really well sometimes, and then other times it was So messages have been improved. You can view the Now Playing of other users and start a party. You can also add favorite groups to a favorite list, so you're going to have a favorite section as well now. And you can also upload video clips to Twitter, 10-second maximum, obviously, because you can't upload really long video clips to Twitter for whatever reason that is. But it's nice that you'll finally be able to upload videos to Twitter, just like little short, goofy clips. Live from PlayStation has been improved as well. It supports broadcasts as well as video clips and screenshots, so it's going to start looking more like another section of Steam. So actually, PlayStation, a lot of the updates we're getting now is making the interface look more like a Steam interface, is what it seems like. While Microsoft is obviously, with the Xbox One, making their interface copy all the Windows operating systems, with the last update making the Xbox One look like Windows 8, and this new one's going to make it look like Windows 10. Other features that we have is you're also going to be able to have stamps in messages. I'm not really sure what the purpose of stamps is, just like a goofy thing, I guess. The comment section is going to be allowed on the What's New activity feed, so you're going to be able to comment a lot easier on when when a friend buys a game or unlocks a trophy or whatever. Here's another really cool thing, though, is that PlayStation Plus has been added to the main menu. Before, you had to go into the PlayStation Store, scroll down to Games, and then scroll to PlayStation Plus. Now it's going to be right on your main menu, so every time it's time to go look and see what new games and stuff you've gotten this month, you can just go scroll to where it is on the main menu, hit it, and you'll be good to go. The Blu-ray disc and DVD player now supports the accessibility features. That's more for people who watch a lot of Blu-rays and DVDs on their systems, both PlayStation or Xbox. I don't really do either or, but it's still a nice update to have. You can set game startup restrictions, so more parental control stuff. You can also create a child use sub account, which means like you have like the regular adult account, and then you have a sub account listed under that account for like your child to use, and you can set parental control settings for that as well. But that's pretty much all the features that are going to be coming out with this new update, which won't be, I'm guessing, available until December maybe, because it's going to be beta tested in September. So hopefully it'll come out maybe like at the end of September after the beta test is over if it goes well. If it doesn't go well, it'll probably be pushed back to December. I'm not really sure what Ogre thinks of all of that because, well, he doesn't really have a PlayStation, but yeah.
Oh, no, I think it's great that they're copying Steam and that they're doing things that Microsoft has had as a feature on the Xbox for a while with, like, the integrated fucking, like, oh, your friend is here, go join them.
Well, your friend is here, go join them has been on the PlayStation 4 for a while now. It's just they're improving upon the custom UI or custom operating system that the PlayStation 4 runs. And for one, I'm glad they're making it more like Steam, and I think Xbox should also follow that format.
Oh yeah,
because
Steam is great.
Even though it's kind of fucked up sometimes, and big picture mode is a joke that I don't think anybody seriously uses.
Big picture modes is only made for fucking Steam consoles, and that's it. Like,
yeah,
big picture mode is the biggest fucking farce ever.
Yeah, but other than that, the way Steam's set up is really nice, and I think both of the consoles should copy that setup more. So yeah. So, for those of you who are paying attention to Bethesda, most of you know that Fallout Shelter has been released on Android, and by that reasoning has also been released on PC via BlueStacks and other emulation software. So, I don't know, Devin, what were your first impressions on Fallout Shelter? Well, I mean, I pretty much gave my first impressions of Fallout Shelter because I barely played it, and then I did the Mobile Monday video on it, because I wanted to get it up and out as soon as possible. And I gotta say, it's a really fun game. It's a really time-consuming game too. Supposedly, you can actually cheat in it though, because the time limit on everything runs off of the internal clock on your phone and not the internet clock, so you can overclock it and basically set it up to where you can come back in like a minute, and in like 8 years will have gone by according to your internal clock. So you'll have like a bunch of stuff to collect and a lot of resources and shit like that. Haven't really done that. Apparently people have kind of fucked their own games up by that, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, but Fallout Shelter has definitely been a lot of fun so far. I've clocked way more hours in it than I'm willing to admit so far. And one thing that I think is really interesting is I've gotten to the point where raiders have started attacking my vault, and so now on top of having to send dwellers out into the wasteland and making sure they have enough resources to survive, I also have to make sure I have all my vault dwellers at least somewhat armed and make sure that I have enough resources to heal them and revive them should any of them die in a raid. And apparently later on in the game, Death Claws will raid your vault as well, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that. It's probably
I'm not sure how I feel about it either.
dies.
Like, my vault right now, like, we're all armed to the teeth. The problem is, the only good weapons I have are, like, fucking enhanced shotguns and hunting rifles, which aren't really that good. And then I have a fuck ton of armor-piercing BB guns for some odd reason or another that do, like, anywhere between 0 and 5 damage.
Yeah, I think the armor-piercing BB gun thing is actually like a reference to Fallout 3. So if I remember, one of the weapons you could get in that was an armor-piercing BB gun.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, moving on from the weapons and stuff, another thing that I've got to say that I definitely love about Fallout Shelter is, yeah, there are microtransactions in the game, but they are the least necessary microtransactions in any game I've ever played with microtransactions. Yeah. You get a lot of vault dwellers really easily, especially once you get the radio tower. And even if you don't have it, you just keep having your vault dwellers have children.
I'm finding that that's faster than using the radio. Like, that's a hell of a lot faster.
The radio tower is just like an extra bonus one every so many hours. You get an extra dweller, and it's like a bonus. And the ones that come from like outside the vault sometimes will have better stats than the ones that are born in the vault.
It's very seldom that happens, though.
Yeah, but I mean the dwellers. You don't really need to worry about dwellers, and if you're good about it, you can collect all your resources without buying any Mr. Handies, even though I've already bought 3. And you don't really need to buy lunch boxes either, even though
You see, what the hell did Mr. Handies even do? Like,
okay, well, what Mr. Handies do is they basically, while you're away from the game, they will auto-collect your resources as long as the game is still running. But the game only runs 10 minutes after you actually close out of the window. It probably doesn't do that for you because you're playing it on PC, but for Android, it'll run 10 minutes after you close out of the game, and you'll get still notifications and stuff about it. But past that 10 minutes, the game will actually completely close and time will freeze. So it's good to have if you're playing the game frequently and you don't want to worry about having to collect your resources. Another thing that the Mr. Handies do is, in addition to collecting resources, they will fight off like any raiders. They'll attack raiders with flamethrowers and stuff. They'll put out fires if you get a fire somewhere in your vault. They'll attack rad roaches and stuff like that. And you can also send them out into the wasteland to collect caps.
Yes. Like I haven't gotten any Mr. Handies, but it actually sounds pretty handy having them go out and collect caps.
Yeah,
that was a horrible pun.
I gotta say, they're pretty useful. They're definitely pretty useful. I've found them to be useful at least, and that's why I ended up buying 3 of them. And another nice thing is, like, you don't need to buy lunch boxes either. It's always a little bit. You always feel a little good when you get lunch boxes, and when you buy them, you still feel just as good. But you don't have to buy them. You definitely have enough vault dwellers, and the lunch boxes are just really a bonus, and you don't really need them. And so the microtransactions don't really feel forced upon you. You can buy or not buy at your leisure, and it doesn't really affect the outcome of the game like so many other games with microtransactions, or pay 99 cents to remove all ads, and I really hate games that do that. And I'm really glad that Bethesda said no, Fallout Shelter isn't going to do any of those annoying things that other mobile games do.
Yeah, like, Fallout Shelter was really well done. I mean, I've only bought, like, 1 lunchbox, to be completely honest, and I've gotten all my other lunchboxes just through, like, doing the normal things in the game, and the only thing they ever really get me that I really want is just good vault dwellers. But once you get like, decent into the game, once you start unlocking rooms that can improve your vault dweller skills, then it doesn't even matter at that point, because then you can just train them, and, you can just leave one in there overnight, and, like, by the time you wake up, it'll be, like, at, like, 6 or 7 in whatever skill you want them in. Like, I've only been playing a few days, but on my Fallout Shelter game, like the one that isn't my Let's Play series, I already have like a level 33 dweller with like fucking like really good endurance and really good luck that I can send out into the wasteland with my best weapon and like just have her go for straight for like 24, 36, 48 hours and just come back with all this loot and her be completely fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, okay, so do we have any other Fallout Shelter thoughts here? Or
no, but we have another Fallout news story.
Oh.
So this one comes from GameSpot after Fallout has been the Fallout devs have been receiving criticism about the game's graphics. They finally responded to those claims. When Bethesda announced Fallout 4 earlier this summer, not everyone was pleased with the post-apocalyptic role-playing game's graphic and gameplay. Now Bethesda's marketing chief, Pete Hines, has responded to those criticisms as part of a new interview, saying that it definitely doesn't upset us. Speaking with Metro, Hines, a 16-year-old video game industry, or 16-year, not 16-year-old, a 16-year video game industry veteran, says he's not surprised that some people are upset. After all, gaming is a form of entertainment, and you can't please anyone. As with most forms of entertainment, you'll never get 100% agreement on anything, he said. So at the end of the day, whether it's what the graphics look like, or whether the gameplay is what you want it to be, or whatever setting it is, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Speaking at E3 in June, game director Todd Howard said Fallout 4's graphics might not be the best that they could be, but dialing things back in terms of visuals was necessary to benefit the other game systems. Some fans have also taken issue in which they perceive Fallout 4's gameplay as being too similar to the 2008 title Fallout 3. Hines said he's not surprised, as Bethesda's goal with Fallout 4 overall is to come across as a bit of mixed and familiar but different. I mean, you certainly ought to look and feel familiar. If you played Fallout 3, you ought to be able to see things recognizable or similar or whatever, but because we didn't make a completely different game. But at the same time, when you're playing it, it's going to be a mix of familiar and different. There are things that are the same and things that will be very different. Those things are difficult to demonstrate in a single short video like Bethesda released at E3. The company hasn't shared any of the official gameplay footage yet, other than some that have recently leaked onto Pornhub. Once you finally get to play Fallout 4, however, you should realize that it's not a copy-paste of Fallout 3. If you jump into the game and play it for an extended period of time, you'll start to feel the differences and how some things have changed. In other recent Fallout 4 news, Bethesda said it will not talk much more about the game's story and lead up to launch. Although Bethesda does have DLC plans in place for Fallout, as the development team's principal focus right now is getting the core game out in November.
I'm honestly not surprised about the DLC thing, but I'm not really angry about it either. Fallout has always had great DLC that's always been worth every penny, and I don't mind them taking any time on DLC, as long as it's as good as all the DLC that they've had in every other Fallout game.
Yeah,
so.
I'm completely fine with them taking their time and releasing DLC, because that means that they weren't working on this DLC before the game was completed. This isn't going to be a Battlefield or Battlefront type thing where they're going to be releasing.
Don't you dare say Battlefront. I don't want to hear that about Battlefront, man.
But they could release the Battle of Jakku at launch, and they're not. At least not for the majority of gamers. And, fucking Battlefield 4 was like, what, they had day one DLC or DLC out within, a week? I was like, bro, this is shit that should have been included in the final game. So I'm glad they're not taking that route. And as far as things, looking too much like Fallout 3, I don't see how anyone I don't see how you can think that, because they're running on two completely different engines. Fallout 4 is running on an advanced version of the Skyrim engine, which is a completely new engine to begin with. And it seems like they're incorporating more elements from modern first-person shooters. I mean, you have a really fluid iron sight system now. It seems like you'll be able to sprint. the RPG like in leveling up system is going to be more similar to Skyrim as it was to Fallout 3. I honestly don't see the validity in those claims.
Yeah, I don't. And another thing that I'm not really bummed out about or whatever is I don't really care that they're keeping the story under wraps until launch. I actually think that's a good thing because sometimes I've found that like when you oversaturate with stuff about your story before the game comes out, you get tired of the story very fast because you already know, okay, well the story is going to have this, this, and that in it, and so you know what to expect. Whereas with the game where you don't really know anything about the story until it comes out, you have the ability to completely experience it for the first time without having any spoiled moments, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement on that. So on to our last article of the day, since I briefly mentioned Battlefront, and this is Star Wars related. New ANA Star Wars planes feature R2-D2 and BB-8. No, it's not the Millennium Falcon, but soon there will be more ways than ever to experience travel Star Wars style. In the latest corporate tie-in to the buzz Star Wars, The Force Awakens, ANA, Japan's largest airline, announced Tuesday that it will have 2 more planes decorated with characters from the Star Wars film. The new Star Wars-themed vessels will join the previously announced R2-D2 ANA jet, a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner bearing the beloved droid's likeness, is scheduled to go into service and to international routes this fall. The new Star Wars ANA jet will feature R2-D2 on the outside of a Boeing 767-300 with its buddy BB-8, a new droid from Star Wars The Force Awakens. For now, it is scheduled to start flying domestic Japanese routes in November. And then it goes to another, like 2 more Star Wars articles that I'm not going to get into because we don't have the time. But that's pretty cool. Like, I would pay to go on a Star Wars themed jet.
It's cool, but it's not surprising. Sci-fi and stuff, sci-fi comics, video games. We're all in an age where they're very popular. That's why we're seeing an insurgence of people trying to force their own political ideas upon those mediums. So, not to mention, we already have a commercial starship named VSS Enterprise, where you can basically take a trip to the moon for like, what was it, $500,000 or something?
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised by this. Yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't really seem like really big, anything really big. They're just slapping a sticker on the side of a plane.
Yeah, it's just a paint job, but it's cool.
Don't get me wrong.
I mean, it like I said, it's cool and it makes for good photographs. They're basically painting up the planes to be Star Wars themed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if I was in Japan, I would definitely think about paying to go on an airliner, though.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, this wraps it up for this episode of Tech Talk. I'll leave links in the description down below to some of the more interesting articles. If you like this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Tech Talks.
Yeah, and I might too.
Yeah. He might too. Depends on whether or not my co-host decides he wants to do it. But,
well, actually, technically, if we're going to be tactical here, I'm the co-host.
yeah,
Aries is just that.
You're the co-host of this episode. Aries is just not here. Anyways, yeah, guys, I will see you guys in the next episode of Tech Talks.